Truth.
Truth. Welcome to Trusting the Truth with Samuel Tolley, where we view the world through the lens of Jesus Christ. We do not view Jesus Christ through the lens of the world. Hello, this is Samuel Tolley, June 21, 2023, and the question I have this morning is gentrification wrong? I had an opportunity to visit an old neighborhood, an old city I grew up in, Pasadena, California, a couple of months ago. And I decided to do a little nostalgic driving around, looking at the old areas we used to play and fool around with and stuff. And I noticed one particular street a friend of mine lived on. Many of the houses had been renovated. Actually, the street looks pretty good. And it's kept real well. So when I came back home, I decided to give him a call. And I told him what I thought about his old stomping grounds. And he said, yeah, it's because of gentrification. And he said that sort of with a negative attitude. And I remember hearing other people, mostly Black folks, use the term gentrification, and they use it in a negative tone. So exactly what is gentrification? Here's the definition. Gentrification, the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. Well, one of the primary laws of real estate is to buy low and to sell high. That benefits the investor. Investors do not want to buy high and sell low because then they take a loss. Now, when I grew up in Pasadena, and say around the early 60s, you could buy a house, a 3-bedroom house, a house that accommodated a nice family for less than $30,000, believe it or not. And that same house today would sell in over several $100,000. I remember a friend that grew up, like I said, on this very street. And they decided several years ago to sell. Well, they sold for over several $100,000. But the problem with buying and selling, if an area grows and that the medium housing is going for several $100,000 and you sell your house, obviously for a profit, if you've been there for like 10, 20, 30 years, unless you have other resources, you're not going to buy a similar house or even an upgraded house with that money. You would generally need to move to another area. And this person did. They moved out of state. Well, myself, I used to live, like I said, in California. I live in Arizona. I got more bang for my buck out of state. But what was funny, when I look back historically as a child, when the areas and the people were a little bit more segregated, it seemed like when Black folks moved into a predominantly white area, many of the white folks moved out. And Black folks used to complain about that, as far as I can remember as a child. Now, here we are in 2023, where many of these Black folks that lived in those areas, many of them have decided to sell their property, take the money and go elsewhere, take that nest egg, that equity they built up over the years. And in many cases, they sold it to white folks. And many of these white folks have moved into that area and have renovated the house because they want to make their investment better. They want to improve it. And some of the Black folks that are still around or have left are crying gentrification. I remember an area in Pasadena that was really what you would call the lower ghetto. It was very bad, very poor, very downtrodden. Well, people bought it, tore up all those old homes, got rid of it, built in new condos and townhouses and gated communities. it upped the value. And people call that gentrification. But the property value went up, more businesses came in, the neighboring communities or neighborhoods improved, and the folks that used to live there, I would hope, received a profit. So gentrification is not a bad thing. If you own property and you sell it, you look to make a profit. And the folks that moved out of those properties made a profit. Now, if you were a renter, it might be a little bit more difficult. And you may have to move elsewhere just to maintain a renter. But as far as a property owner, gentrification, any lower bad neighborhood that gets renovated, it brings the property value up in that neighborhood. It brings the property value up in surrounding neighborhoods. And as far as this idea of black folks moving out and white folks moving in, I think times have changed drastically. In my area, in Arizona, we have everybody. I have white folks on both sides of me, behind me. I got black folks down the street, up the street. I got Hispanic folks, Asian folks. The only thing that people care about in my community is that everybody takes care of their property, which everybody does. Well, we have an HOA, what I like to call the house Nazis. They run around and make sure everybody takes care of it. So there's good and there's bad with the HOA. But anyway, everybody takes care of it. Everybody's happy, as far as I can tell. And I'm in an area where there is no gentrification because the area doesn't need it. But there's certain areas that will need it. And if investors come in and spend their money wisely, everybody could profit from it. This is Sam Tolley, and I'm out.